Welcome to Audacity Works, a podcast inspired by and dedicated to the working artist, the creative entrepreneur, and generally, doing the damn thing. This exists on the premise that the world belongs to those who have the audacity to believe that their lives have value. This is for you. Welcome to Audacity Works. I am your host, Rachel Strickland, and this is episode number 121. This is by request from my girl Jess, who wrote to me asking how to negotiate with a certain gremlin. That gremlin being, no one wants to hire my work. It's too out there, weird, contemporary, fill in the blank. Let's talk about it. But of course, I'm going to give you some updates first. Update number 1, the waitlist for the Audacity Project is going to be closing this weekend. And the waitlist is the best place to get early access bonuses, a cute little discount, and just generally more TLC on the way to enrollment. That link will be in the show notes. Join me on the waitlist if you want like a nice little wool glove on the way. That was a weird metaphor. I'm going to leave it in. I'm leaving it in. Other update is that there are 2 more places. There's really only 1 place left for Creatrix, but technically there are 2 because one of the deposits hasn't been completed yet. So if you want to come to South Carolina in May, which is an exceptional time to be in coastal South Carolina, it is so gorgeous and luscious, delicious, so good. If you want to come, sit on the beach, swing in a hammock, learn some witchcraft with me, get your portrait taken, and that portrait being of your internal muse, which we will be getting to know throughout the week. All of this and so much more at Creatrix in May of this year. The link to that is also in the show notes, and of course, you can always write to me and ask me questions. The one remaining place is a bunk bed in the dorms. It's the lowest cost. I think it is $2,300, and that is all inclusive of meals, transportation to and from the airport, and all of the programming and excavations. Well, yes, excavations actually, but also excursions. That's what I was going to say, excursions, and all the classes and everything. Desperately delighted to be offering this. It won't be happening next year. It might happen the year after that. I have no firm plans about it, but that's the haps for now. So anyway, let's talk about this gremlin, okay? The gremlin being, no one wants to hire my work. It's too out there, contemporary, too weird. And to do that, let's first acknowledge the nature of a gremlin. The nature of a gremlin is that it is based on a lie. I'll say that again. The nature of gremlins is that they're based on lies. This is why things like circumstance are not gremlins, because you can control your circumstances. Like your children are not a gremlin. That's just a life circumstance that you can negotiate with. Still have to negotiate with it, but it's not a gremlin. The gremlin would be, I don't have any time. Well, the reason that we don't have any time is because we don't give ourselves any time. So let me back this up with some facts, okay? And with those facts, I'm just going to name off some weird circus artists, because this is a circus arts specific person who asked me this question. My first example is going to be myself. I have an act called Genesis that takes place out of a human-sized petri dish full of water. It's a pretty weird act. I've sold it to a handful of cabarets. It got me a month-and-a-half long residency in San Francisco, where I got to perform it every weekend, often several times a weekend, and it's been on national television. I've also gotten to reinvigorate the act for a couple of staged shows for grassroots circus shows like Circus Automatic in San Francisco, and even like non-weird things like the 100th anniversary of the Rome Symphony Orchestra in Georgia. That's not a weird thing. Like, that's a pretty conservative thing, actually. But that's the act that they wanted. Yay! Let's keep going, okay? Not sure if you are aware of an aerialist known as Empress Sta. Empress Sta has such an illustrious career. I'm not even sure where the woman is based. I think it might be Sydney, but she's performed internationally for like over 27 years. Did you hear what I just said? One of the acts that she is most known for is called Stargasm. It was created in collaboration with Peaches. Yes, that Peaches. And it involves a laser light show. The laser comes out of, I think it's a butt plug. It might be a dildo. I'm not sure, but it's definitely coming from her crotch. Like in the aerial hoop with lasers coming out of either her butt or her vagina. I'm not sure. But either way, respect. Y'all, that act was part of a one-woman show that was funded by the Arts Council. Okay. Let's keep going, all right? I'm going to shout out my dear friend, Fleeky Flanco. I met Fleeky in San Francisco when I very, very first started studying in 2007. Fleeky is a front-bending contortionist and hand balancer. He is one of my favorite physical performers in the entire world. He has a very bizarre magnetic movement quality that I could eat with a knife and a fork. So whatever you pictured when I said hand balancer, don't picture that. Like, he's very highly skilled. Also, it's not a conservative act. It's not something that you would expect to be like on the main stage at some corporate. I don't know. I don't even know what words to use. It's weird. Okay. He's weird. He's gorgeous and weird. And he's had an immense amount of success, especially the cabarets in Germany love him. And it's not in spite of the weirdness. It's because of the weirdness. He even did like an impression to me once. Like, they love you over there. And he's like, yeah, they're always like, yeah, we don't know what you are. And that was my terrible attempt at replicating his German accent, which was pretty good. But I've never tried to do a German accent, and now you know, because I'm terrible at it. But that's what they said. They didn't know what he was, and it was so interesting to them and so bizarre. And like, he's worked more German cabarets, which are pretty good work if you can get it, than anyone I know. So I'm going to put links to all of these things in the show notes if you want to see any of the things that I'm talking about. You're like, what? Yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and link that. Check the show notes. This is just some evidence to support the nature of gremlins, which is that they are liars. And the lie is because weird stuff gets booked and is successful all the time, not in spite of its weirdness or its out there-ness, but because of it. Now, I could keep going for another 10 minutes and tell you about this and this and this and this artist that makes really bizarre things, really unusual, out there, contemporary work, and that they get hired and they're successful, and it wouldn't matter to your gremlin at all. It matters to your intellectual mind. You hear what I'm saying, and you know I'm telling the truth because I don't lie. I'm not clever enough to lie. Also, it's substantiated. You can check up on these things. But the reason that it won't make any difference to you isn't because it's true, like it's true. The reason it doesn't make a difference to your gremlin is because gremlins don't respond to evidence. They are liars in the face of facts that prove them wrong. Maya Angelou had gremlins. That gremlin was that she wasn't a good writer. And it didn't matter that she had a CV as long as her own leg and was the most beloved author of our time. She still would feel that way. So if Maya Angelou can feel it, then you can feel it too. And you can know that it's not like your fault that you still feel this gremlin, even though you know the evidence supports the fact that it's not true. So let's move on from that. So let's think about the question from this perspective. What is this gremlin protecting me from? Gremlins are always there to protect you from something. What their hope is always the same. Like, the function of a gremlin is to get you to stop doing what you're doing, or to give up in some way, to take less action, to just stay where you are. So it's a good sign when you have a gremlin, because that gremlin means that you are becoming more expansive. You're pushing the boundaries of your world out. And gremlins bark loudest when you're closest to a breakthrough, because they really, really hate that. That's your nervous system, right? It wants you to be safe. It wants a life that's predictable. And nothing is less predictable than the life of a freelance performance artist. I don't know if that's a true statement, but it's a very unpredictable life. And you can understand where your gremlins are coming from. Like, don't you want to just live in a hobbit hole and get mail to the same place for the next 20 years? Because we would prefer that. Could you stop doing this, please? And your answer is no, thank you. Thanks for your contribution. Have a biscuit. Go sit in the back seat. Now, knowing who asked me this question, and I've known her for years, I know that she's not going to give up. She's not going to stop doing what she's doing. But, gremlins are troublesome, and they zap you of energy, and they make you feel shit about yourself, even if you know they're not true. Even if you're not going to stop doing what you're doing, they still feel terrible. And any evidence that they can grab onto to support their false claim is going to be used as ammunition. And there's always going to be ammunition present. Like the artist that wrote in with this question, she does get rejected a lot or ghosted, and she's very, very good at sending out solicitations and inquiries. And that's how we change our world. We get on the line. We make the phone calls, we send the emails, we go to the places, we meet the people. That's how you grow. That's what I teach in the Audacity Project, because that's what works at every level of professionalism. The call doesn't just fall into your lap like, hello, we would like for you to join our international tour. You'll be on the road for the next 18 months. We will pay you $5 bajillion a day. So she's doing all the right things, but because she is getting rejected, then yeah, that ammunition is going to be used by the gremlins to bark even louder. So what can we do about it? Well, let's look at some data. Let's look at some numbers real fast. Now, what I just described, these like cold reach outs, solicitations, emailing casting@blank.com, that's what I would classify as a cold solicitation. You can expect a 5 to 10% response rate to cold solicitations. That's why you have to send out so many. 5 to 10% means if you send out 100 emails, you can expect 5 to 10 responses. That doesn't mean yeses. It means responses. And you can see from numbers like this why most people aren't cut out to do this kind of work, because it can be brutal. You have to have like an iron resolve, which she does. This artist does. So if you have to send out that many inquiries to get that few of responses, then let's do the due diligence of making sure, one, that we're sending out primo material. And that means your promotional materials, the quality of the video, the photos, but also like how you communicate, how you are writing these inquiries in the first place, and how easy it is to say yes to you. I know a lot of artists, I'm not picking apart her solicitations in this podcast, because I wanted this to be like more general, and I have responded to her privately to make things a little bit more specific to her. But in general, look at how you are wording what it is that you are saying. Are you making it super easy to say yes to you? I know a lot of artists want to appear professional, and as a result, all of their communications make it sound like they have a huge stick up their ass. Like, it's dry, there's no personality in it, and let's be honest, like, most people don't get hired because they're amazing. They get hired because someone else introduced them, their act is good, and they're easy to work with. And we can work with that too. We can work with those numbers. Did you know that if someone else introduces you via email or otherwise to a decision maker, you have a 20% higher chance of getting a response? That's way more than 5 to 10%. Getting those introductions is paramount. And this is where writing and calling and online research only gets you so far, because a lot of times you just have to be in the room. And how do you be in the room? You have to go to the place and get in front of the people and look them in the eyes and shake their hands and make a joke and see if they laugh at it and see if you're even a good fit and if they are a good fit for you. It's very work intensive, but it also yields massive rewards that can pay off for years to come. Second best thing from getting in a room with someone and meeting them, shaking their hand, talking to them as a person, is to have that personal introduction via email, usually. And a lot of people will not pursue that route because they don't want to bother their friends, or they don't want to seem like they're after something. But like, baby, you are after something. You're after it. Let's be after it all the way. But let's focus on that thing that I just casually dropped there a second ago, which is to see if they are a good fit for you. Because these reach outs, they can take a lot. They take time, they take energy, they take heart pumps. And so let's make sure that you're writing to people that you actually want to work for. Because I am telling you, your weirdos are out there. Your weirdos are out there. Your work is not too weird. It's not too out there. It's not too contemporary. It is just right for someone. And work that is extraordinary will require someone extraordinary to see the value in it. Who is going to get the most work ever? You already know, so let's just say it out loud. Tits and splits, big smile, pretty femme presenting performer, right? There's more work for that archetype than any other archetype I know in the performing arts. Well, where does that leave the rest of us? Okay. Yes, there are less opportunities for something other than that archetype. That doesn't mean there are none, because there are still a lot. And especially if your work is unique and out there, it will require someone with vision, and that vision will allow them to access the fact that your work is the thing that they want and that it does have value. And yes, I want that. I want that weird thing. I want the laser light show coming out of the crotch. I want the woman getting born out of a petri dish. I want the hand balancer that I can't tell what kind of creature it is, much less the gender of the creature. Extraordinary vision deserves to be staged by other people who have extraordinary vision. This is why every rejection you get, and that doesn't mean a ghosting. A ghosting is not a rejection, but you can still count it on your punch card. But every rejection you get is kind of an act of love, because it means that you can now turn your energy towards finding the people that do value your weird, out there, contemporary work. And I also want to point out that if your extraordinary act got hired to fill a tits and splits section of a show, and they're like, we like your act, we like the skills, but can you make the costume this and change the movement quality to this, and just tried to make you tits and splits, would that be good enough for you? And maybe that could be a useful mantra. You're are these people cool enough for me to work for? Are these people cool enough for me to give them this gift? So to wrap this up, I am looking at the time. I'm just past 20 minutes. And besides all of the nuts and bolts of what you can do in your reach outs and how you can choose your reach outs carefully and ask the question, well, are they good enough for me? Not just, am I good enough for them? Which is none of your business. That's not your job to know the answer to that question. The whole problem here wasn't that she didn't know what to do. Like she knows exactly what to do. She just wants to feel better doing it because the gremlins are barking loud. The gremlins are barking loud because she's trying. And to this end, this is an exercise I've been using in my coaching. I introduced it in Mexico. I loved the results of it. It's called the brag book, which is just exactly what it sounds like. I'm pretty sure, I'm confident that you all know where your weaknesses are and like the things that you wish you were better at. We don't really need to name those because you're very, very aware of them. But are you aware of the things about you that are really extraordinary? Are you aware of all of the really strong selling points that you have? Because if you're not aware of them, how's anyone else going to be aware of them? And that's called the brag book. And I encourage you to make your own. Add to it every day. At least 5 things on the first instance, and then 1 a day for the rest of your life. Right? No big deal. Just write a brag book. But if there are follow-up questions, of course, you know where to find me. And if you have requests for future episodes, you can always reach me on Instagram at Rachel Strickland Creative or on Patreon at Rachel Strickland Creative. This podcast is powered by Patreon. I mean that very literally because it costs money to run a podcast, and the Patreon pays for that so that I am not running into the red by making this podcast. So I got to shout out my patrons for making this podcast possible, as well as a lot of other things that are possible for me that would not be possible if you weren't there. This could not exist without you. Thank you. Until next time, my friends, go write yourself a brag book, at least 5 things, and don't go back to sleep.